Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You have the unique privilege of getting to chat with me on my living room swing here because Matt needed the upstairs area for his own work. So we're just going to have a little chat about how to get rid of mental clutter. Last week I shared 50 signs that you have mental clutter. If you weren't sure, even though you probably already knew, if that's you, I got a couple of really thoughtful comments on that video that made me really excited to come back today and share some of the things that have worked for me for really getting rid of mental clutter. And you're talking to like a mental clutter expert here because I've been through all the different types of mental clutter, and it's something that I constantly have to work on and have some tools ready to dive into. So today I'm going to share my top tools with you. I've got 10 things that I'm going to share. First of all, not all mental clutter is the same. I think there are like 3 big reasons that we tend to develop mental clutter. One of them is that we have too much stuff going on. We're just like overwhelmed, overpacked, and there's just literally too many thoughts and plans and ideas in our head, almost like physical clutter. Then there's also this mental clutter of negative thought patterns, this insidious, bad wiring almost, right? These limiting beliefs, these negative ways of thinking that keep you feeling stuck and trapped, even if you don't have too many irons on the fire. It's not like you have too much stuff going on, and that definitely impacts your mind and your ability to have mental clarity as well. And then there's mental clutter that's developed by disorganization in your mind, as opposed to having too many thoughts and too many things in your mind. And that disorganization makes you feel scattered and forgetful and foggy and low energy and all of those things. You can have more than one going on at the same time. You could definitely have negative, insidious thought patterns and have too much on your plate. Or you might have any one of those things and they often share symptoms. Low energy or a foggy mind or waking up with anxiety could fall into any one of those buckets. So sometimes it might be hard without really getting in tune with yourself and finding out what the source of the mental clutter is. But luckily, a lot of the tools that you use are the same or can fill in for more than one cause. Now, the tools also fall into 3 different categories. We've got like the quick and easy tools that are the triage. They're not going to necessarily last or give you indefinite relief, but they'll give you a moment of reprieve to where you can refocus and move forward. And if you do those regularly, like on repeat, then you're going to have even more benefits. They'll start to compound. We have ongoing exercise style tools. These are things that you're going to have to do regularly, repeatedly, and you're going to get amazing results if you do. But it does definitely take more intention and a little more effort on your part. And then we have tools that are a one and done. Like you set them up once and then they will continue to provide results for you. So let's start with the quick tools. The first one is visualization. There are obviously a ton of different ways that you can use visualization, but the reason that visualization is great when it comes to mental clutter is because we like to operate and think in stories. I've talked about that before. Our brains are like geared to understand the world around us in stories. And we have these amazing imaginations. So being able to pull in your imagination in the form of some kind of a story or visual situation can actually change the way that your body feels. It can make you feel like you're somewhere else. I don't know if you ever did that exercise in high school. I remember doing this where they had you pretend like you had a lemon and they walked you through the steps of cutting the lemon in half and smelling the lemon and tasting the lemon. And then before you know it, everybody in the class's mouth is salivating. And their point in that lesson was that your digestive system starts when you think about food. It doesn't start when you smell food or when you first taste food or when you start prepping it. It starts when you think about it. So that's how tied in our thoughts and the way that we visualize things can be with our body, with our mind, and with the way that we respond to things. The more granular and specific you get with your visualization, the more benefits you're going to receive from it. Like if the teacher in class had just said, imagine you're eating a lemon. A lot of people would have been like, cool, I'm eating a lemon. They're not receiving the benefits. No, they had to walk through the steps of you're cutting the lemon, you're squeezing the lemon. You can feel the slippery rind in your hand. You're smelling the lemon. What does it smell like? You're tasting the lemon and it's tart and you feel your taste, like they go through step by step. And it's kind of, you get the same benefit when you get really granular and detailed with any type of visualization. One of my favorite types of visualization, something that's worked many times for me when I feel like I have too many thoughts going on in my head, when I feel like I'm overwhelmed by thoughts, or like I have these insidious thoughts, something like emotionally pulling and kind of mentally all consuming, maybe like the health of a family member or the loss of someone I love, and it's just kind of taking over my head. It's helped in situations like that too. And this is the visualization of placing your thoughts on leaves that are going down the stream. If you close your eyes and you just visualize that you're standing next to this stream and you go through all the details of, like, your feet are on the sand, or you feel the pebbles, or you feel the cold drops of water like slipping between your toes, and there are these leaves that pass by before you, and on each leaf you place a thought. And once you place that thought doesn't come back to you. You move on to other thoughts. And as another thought comes in, you take that thought and you place it on the leaf and you watch it go down the stream. When you're really intentional about specific thoughts that have been nagging at you, and you go through this detailed visualization of depositing those thoughts and letting them leave you, doesn't mean they can't come back later, but at that moment, just kind of releasing them, I find that is a really quick, effective type of visualization for me. There are tons of visualizations. If you want to see some of my favorites, our sponsor today is Aura Health. I've been using their app. It's like a mindset app for years now. What's different about this particular app is that it's a little more like Spotify, where they have a collection of just thousands of different types of meditations, hypnosis, cognitive behavioral therapy, life coaching, mind coaching, spiritual leaders, all of these different things that you can literally search for right there in their app. And then they have this AI that learns what you like and shows you more of it. We are not all into the same thing. So I appreciate that the app isn't showing me things over and over again that I'm not personally interested in. But if you do want to get started with something like visualization and you're curious about some of the things that I use, including the leaf depositing technique that I was just sharing about, I have a playlist that Aura is letting me share with you guys. So you can use the link down in my description and check out my playlist if you'd like. And you'll also get a 25% discount on their premium version of the Aura app if that's something that you feel interested in once you get in there and check it out. But visualization is really powerful. Number 2 quick method is journaling. And I'm sure you've heard like journaling out the wazoo. And it can mean so many things. There are so many different types of journaling. When it comes to mental clutter, things that I've literally done when I've been going through severe overwhelm from having either too much on my plate, or again, from having just catastrophic things happen in my life, I've even just sat out on the deck before with my journal and my pen and just started writing. Whenever I feel like I really, really need to just fix my brain right now, like I'm just losing it, right? Just pulling out my journal, pulling out my pen, and getting things off of my mind. There's just this really interesting connection between writing and our brain. It's like using the right side of your brain, the creative side of your brain that uses linguistics and art, versus the chaos and the overanalyzing and stuff that goes on in your mind. Having negative thoughts about people in your life, that could be something that you sit there and you just start writing and spewing it out. There's a certain way to go about it if you're really wanting to declutter that from your mind. Although venting is really helpful too, right? You can definitely sit there and vent, but it really becomes more powerful when you flip it around. So with those types of situations, I really like to start with journaling something simple, like, this person is frustrating me. Here's why. And you write it out. But then the second part of that would be something like, here's what this person is probably thinking and feeling, and really get in there and write it out. The way we're feeling changes when we start thinking about the way somebody else is feeling and wishing them the best. You feel relieved. You feel this weight being lifted. It's not even all about the other person. They're off living their life, doing their own thing. This is about getting the clutter out of your own mind. This is one of those that works across all 3 different kinds of mental clutter. If you just need a little bit of organization and to add a little more structure to those thoughts, that can be done through journaling too, just writing them down in categories or in columns. And then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I'm seeing these patterns. I'm seeing this organization that I didn't see before. And now that I have a little more clarity, I feel a little more hopeful, less mental clutter, and you feel more emotionally at ease. The third quick tool that I really love is extended exhales. Inhaling for 1, exhaling for 2, and you just keep doubling with an exhale. It gets challenging really quickly, more so than you would think. I don't know if you can get a whole lot higher than maybe 6 and exhaling for 12, but that's what I love about it, is that it's giving you a mental challenge. It's giving you something to redirect your thoughts to, as opposed to just like, there's nothing really soothing about that or challenging about it. You're still able to think through all of the crazy stuff in your head while you're breathing like that. But when you really challenge yourself and you're like, and keep going and see how far you can push yourself. And maybe next time you can push yourself a little bit further. So then it becomes a little challenge in that sense too, to go a little bit further and a little bit further. You're oxygenating your brain. You're giving yourself those deeper breaths that you lack when you're really stressed out and overwhelmed, because our breathing is one of the first things to get super shallow. And you can just feel that. You can feel that in your body because your muscles aren't getting the oxygen that they're used to or that they need. Your brain's not getting the oxygen that it needs. So not only are you getting some really awesome oxygen, you're giving yourself a little bit of a challenge, which is giving you something different to focus on. And then you're also overriding your central nervous system by tapping into your parasympathetic nervous system, because breathing is one of those automated things that our central nervous system naturally takes over. We don't have to think to breathe. We breathe while we sleep. Whenever you take over that and you override it, well, then you switched over to your parasympathetic nervous system. Your nerves just kind of take a back seat. Okay, this fourth one can be a quick and or an ongoing, a little bit of mix of both, talking it out. And again, this is something that's like so trite, so cliche, right? But I was watching this reel. She said the biggest problem millennial moms face today is loneliness, because we think that our thoughts are too big, too ugly, too scary to be able to release and share with anybody else. They would definitely judge us and not understand. But because we don't share that, nobody else feels comfortable sharing that. And so we all suffer from this innate isolation. And so isolation is an interesting thing, because obviously in today's techie world, we're all experiencing more isolation than people used to experience. And that isolation can lead to feeling mentally trapped as well. It can lead to its own type of mental clutter, because when you're mentally trapped and you don't have any outlets and you don't have that oxytocin coming in, like big communities of people tend to live longer and live happier lives because they're getting extra doses of that oxytocin, that happiness, love hormone. Letting it out, sharing it with somebody, and especially when you see that that person not only has some tips or advice for you, but even more importantly, understands you and has felt the same way, and you realize that you're not such a freak, that like so many other people feel the same way that you feel, that just releases so much tension and so much mental clutter on its own, because you don't have to carry that in your mind anymore. It doesn't have to be so heavy. So like I said, that could be a quick one if you're just like getting something off your chest and venting or having a conversation to keep from exploding. But obviously it can be ongoing too for people who do things like therapy, or who have more deep-rooted things that they need to be chatting out on a longer term basis. So that's where we switch over into ongoing, and where the approach could very well vary depending on the type of mental clutter you have. So if you just have too much stuff going on in your head, a one and done really quick conversation or one-time conversation with your husband or your mom or like whoever can be an amazing thing. But if you have negative thought patterns, then you might need some more of an ongoing type of talk therapy. And either way, you're decreasing the isolation. Another really impactful ongoing tool is conscious redirection. We as humans, we really undervalue our ability to think about what we think about, the way that we have self-consciousness and we can understand that we are here and that we are a being having thoughts. We aren't our thoughts, which sometimes is something that we have to intentionally step back and really think about and realize is that, I feel like I'm insecure and like I'm about to just shrivel up and like curl into a ball next to a tree somewhere because I just can't take everything going on in my head and my body right now. I feel all of these things. I think all of these things, but I'm not my thoughts. I'm just the thinker of these thoughts. And when you can pull back and kind of see things at a bird's eye view, that is a great way to really be able to decrease a lot of mental clutter. But on a day-to-day basis, this could look like using affirmations. I've seen people put Post-it notes on their mirrors or on their computer screen or just in different places to intentionally add these thoughts, like supplement these thoughts throughout their daily routine without having to put in quite as much effort. Or it could be that you commit to focusing on this one thing, this one type of insidious thought that you know you're struggling with. And every time you have that thought, you're going to intentionally, consciously redirect your thought to something else. I'm not going to think about that right now. I'm going to think about this. I'm not going to, oh, I'm thinking about this again. Nope, I'm going to think about this. And the more that you intentionally, consciously redirect those thoughts, which you do have the ability to do, you just have to be intentional about it, the more that you'll find you don't naturally have those thoughts anymore. I don't think the same way that I thought 10 years ago. Your thoughts change over time when you let them change, when you practice redirecting your thoughts and having new thoughts. The last ongoing I want to share about is something that I probably struggle with the most, and that is nourishing your body, because so many of the chemicals and just the things that we need in order to have a peaceful mind, in order to keep down the cortisol and to feel less stressed, and all of the things like the ability to maintain and take care of and handle all the thoughts that we're having, so much of that comes from the things that we are putting inside of our body. That's our fuel, right? That's what gives us all of the chemicals and the stuff that we need in order to process daily life. And so if you're under eating, or you're eating a lot of the wrong things like just a ton of sugar and caffeine that are going to automatically give you more stress, you're going to find that you feel faster in your brain. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes we're like, well, I want to get a lot done, but fast can be good up to a certain point, and then when it keeps going, when you're ready to stop, that's when you start feeling really overwhelmed and tense and tired, but you can't sleep. And it's just this kind of ongoing, it's a type of mental clutter. Making it easy for yourself, like I've started just keeping protein packs in the refrigerator because my doctor told me that protein is one way to help naturally increase and replenish the serotonin in your brain. And serotonin leads to feeling more calm and feeling happier. And so you can imagine when you feel naturally more uplifted and naturally more calm, your ability to manage and organize and keep those thoughts from spinning out of control becomes easier. So really maintaining your body, obviously not just nourishment, but movement is also another huge one. Moving your muscles, probably the most impactful way that I found. I hate cardio. I don't do much cardio, but using any kind of resistance training, pushing heavy things at the gym, something that gets my muscles to squeeze and to like release, that also releases some of those hormones that give you energy and that give you a sense of calmness. You might feel better after doing it once, you might not. It might not be until your fourth or fifth time of eating that healthy meal and, pushing something heavy at the gym that makes your muscles just a little bit fatigued, but makes you feel a little bit stronger and more energized, that you start to really feel those long-term benefits inside of your brain. And now we've got the one and dones. There are 4 one and dones. These are the great ones because just like any good system, it's something that you can put in place and then the engine works automatically, so you're not having to constantly put forth all of the effort, right? And so the first one of these is to delegate, to ask for help. Now, sure, this could be a quick solve thing, like you ask somebody for help temporarily, but it doesn't have to be. It could also be an ongoing thing. And so that's something worth really sitting and thinking about, maybe even journaling about, is where could I release some of this fully, hand it off to somebody else, and not have to take this on or take it on at a higher level, right? When my oldest daughter was here before she went to college, she was on dishes. She took care of loading the dishes. Now that my oldest is gone, I'm responsible for loading dishes, and my 16-year-old is responsible for just one extra chore per day. And she chose to set it up that way because she hates doing dishes. So it's kind of like as everybody finding what fits best for them and what they mind doing the least. Everybody seems to hate dishes. I don't mind it that much, so I'm happy to take that on in order to not have to take out the trash, because Matt would prefer to do the trash, so he does that. So if you can find systems even in your home where it's not all on one person, but it's delegated out and people know what their role is, what their responsibility is, it makes things a lot easier, and you can just like take that one out of your head, take it off your plate. Right now, I've been working with some really amazing people who have helped me with tasks in my business that I don't necessarily have to do because they do a great job at it. You can start really small. You can start getting help with just a couple of hours a week that's going to take one thing off of your plate that you're not having to think about anymore. Ask for help from your in-laws. Right now, I have so much stuff going on because I'm planning this big virtual summit happening at the beginning of March. It's for modern moms. So if any of you modern moms out there are looking to simplify your home and lives, keep an eye out. I'll be talking about that here soon. But with the summit comes just a lot of extra moving parts. They've been amazing enough to take Chloe, our 2-year-old, here and there to help us out. There are just so many different ways that you could look at outsourcing, delegating, asking for help. It's worth brainstorming about. Another thing that could be a one and done situation, if you do it right, is to clear your space, to create a decluttered, clutter-free, inspiring space. That's the one area that I really focus on because I've gained so much benefit in my own life from creating spaces that inspire me, creating spaces that I'm able to think and produce and exist in on a higher level. That's something that I do constantly. I have workshops. I have an entire free resource library that you can see at miadanielle.com/freebies. If you do it right and you're able to get the clutter out, that's so much less that you're having to do just right there in your home, but it's also a space for you to be able to think and to have thoughts that aren't cluttered by all of the things that are being thrown in your face. So I mentioned in last week's video when I talk about the 50 signs that you have a cluttered mind, and one of those was having a cluttered space because you have a thought that leads to an emotion, that leads to an action, and all that leads to your environment. But it's also a feedback loop because then your space impacts your thoughts. It can make you feel anxious. It can make you feel motivated, calm, at ease, inspired. It can make you feel all of these different things. And it can even go so far as to guide your actions and make you more or less successful in your habits. So really optimizing your environment is a great way, if you do it right, to have a one and done thing in place that helps you to decrease your mental clutter. Another one and done is to tap into groupthink, but in a positive way. Groupthink can be a really good thing or it could be a really, really bad thing. But if you know that there's something that you're wanting to change about the way that you think, surrounding yourself with these thoughts and ideas that you're wanting to exhibit yourself is a great way to have a one and done situation. You surround yourself with these people, you put these things in your feed, and it's done. It's just going to show up naturally whenever you show up wherever you were going anyway. You don't have to think about it every time. Groupthink is a powerful thing. So many psychological studies have been done that show that, putting a group of people together changes the decisions and the actions that any one of those people would take. Because we're social beings by nature, it's a really powerful thing that we can tap into intentionally if we take the time to do so and to be intentional about the things we're feeding ourselves. I call it feeding your brain because that's exactly what you're doing. You're feeding your brain information just like you would feed your body a certain diet of food. We're changed by the people around us. And if you follow or subscribe to or surround yourself with people that you can absorb positivity from and at the same time relate to, then it's even more powerful because you can start seeing yourself in a different light through that person. When you watch other people who have more positive thoughts, when you watch other people who are really organized and are amazing at time management, you start to absorb some of that. You start to add a few of those little details into your own identity, and slowly, day by day, you start to change. And the last one and done, which I've kind of touched on in some of the other points, but really it could look so many different ways, is to lean into systems. Systems are where it's at. I know it's New Year's, January, people always like to focus on goals, and goals are amazing. Like, I'm not saying don't have goals, but the goals aren't going to get you to the goal. It's the systems that are going to get you to the goal. I like the way that James Clear mentions in his book, Atomic Habits. We do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. You're only going to be able to achieve as much as the systems. Now, when it comes to having cluttered thoughts, it's the systems that are going to take some of that mental load off of you. It's the systems that are going to make it to where things are on automation in the background so that you're not having to worry about them because they're already in this cogwheel engine that's just happening. The more systems that you can build in your work, in your digital life, in your home life, when it comes to, like I said, chores around the house even, or cooking nights or anything, literally anything, that is taking up mental space in your mind right now, I guarantee you that there's some kind of a system that could be built around that or implemented into that would make it easier. Hopefully you got some kind of hope or inspiration or just general ideas that you could implement and give it a try. See if you feel a little less mentally overwhelmed and mentally cluttered. I'll chat with you next week.